Fire Committee. We have a late arrival. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Concepts. First will be. For the record.
Had a rough night. Well, thank you all for being here. Roll call is being taken or has been taken.
Yeah, I have everyone's.
Okay. Approval of the minutes of our January 12th, 2017 regular meeting. Motion to approve. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any corrections or changes to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you. Approval of police department bills. Chief, would you like to go through?
Good morning. There's 5 sets of bills in front of you. The reason there's so many is when we end a year and go into the next, we sometimes have some carryover. So 5 sets of bills, I believe 2 sets from 2016 and 3 from 2017. Many, what you'll see in the bills, especially on 4B and C, is some subscription renewals that we have from various software vendors and other equipment systems we have. Also, throughout the bills, many membership renewals that are annual renewals. Nothing significant outside of that. Bring your attention some carpet replacement that we took care of within the building. Other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have in those sets of bills for your approval.
Motion to approve.
So.
Second? I'll second. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
On 4F, there's a no purchase of, oh no, not that one. And it's somewhere in the bills, either the fire or police department, I want to go through. I'd just like to encourage both departments to use local vendors as much as they can. You see, we purchase some stuff, some office equipment, in particular. I don't know which department, and it just would be good to support local businesses. They have the same product.
There was I don't know if it was in this set of bills or the previous one, there was some desks that we had purchased. We actually purchased those through Marshall Local Stationery. They'll match any online prices that we found in my talking with them and negotiations with them, and they'll often deliver it free of charge and sell it free of charge and remove the old desks free of charge. So it is a very good deal to keep it local with respect to that. But maybe try to monitor the local vendors.
I think in particular it's probably fire department, a couple of office chairs or something, but
Yeah, that was purchased through, that's the vendor that supplies the whole city. So,
well, then we can talk to the whole city about that.
I will make sure to pass that on.
Okay.
We have a motion on the table to approve police department bills. Any additional comments or questions? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. I realized before you start, Chief, that I missed something. We don't have a public comment section on here. Is there any comment from the public? Oh, yes, sir. Identify yourself and the address, please.
I'm currently on the University Commission, and we're in the process of negotiating with the contractor to put up a cell tower on university property. And this would be a great benefit to the students and to the neighborhood because cell service out there is awful at this point in time. The city has expressed some interest in it in the sense that in 2018 we will be moving out of the current city hall to the new one, Forward Financial Building, and there are a number of cell towers on the top of the building now that will have to be moved because they're long-term contracts and the new person that's coming in to City Hall doesn't want them. So we are possibly going to have to move them, and they're possibly looking at locating up at the university. My point in bringing the whole thing up was this. could the police department and the fire department benefit from the fact that there will be a tower up there at some point? We have a meeting on the 20th of this month where the commission will approve it, because the commission is generally in favor of it. Not only will it generate some income for the university, but the advantages to the city of having it up there will be such. So I only bring it up from the standpoint, if this police department and the fire department could use it, you also may be a possible tenant there.
That's something I'll talk to you afterwards, find out
Okay.
exactly where on that site. We're still restricted by the airport overlay, which is, you know, how high those towers can go. It causes us problems.
Right.
Actually, that side of town is the high part of town that causes us problems. And so I need to take a look in terms of where that university property fits in relationship to that topography. And if it's on the right side of it, it's definitely something that I'm sure both departments would be interested in.
Okay, that's one of the issues that we run into, the height of this tower. Where the contractor wants to put it, the comments at some of the last meetings were that they would like to make it more unobtrusive and maybe perhaps move it into the woods. But then we get into this issue with the airport, because the runway is right over that area. So it limits the size of the tower, and the land starts to slope off there, so the tower would have to get higher. And so I don't know where we're going with that, but at this point, the tower appears to be in a range of about 100 feet tall. And it's one of these new monopole style things where it's just one pole up and then on the top is the stuff. So I don't know how it's all going to work out, but I'm pretty convinced that we're going to have something up there. So if it can be a benefit to you guys, I think that's great. I'll bring it up at the meeting.
Mr. Earl, thank you for the input.
You're very welcome.
I can tell you that when I was up there, I checked into that. Anything above 37 feet violates FAA airspace.
Well, according to this contractor, he said, they've done their research up to this point, and they feel that they can put one up about 100 feet tall.
Well, check carefully, because I got a different story. But I'll tell you where to put it and how to put it. But on your Waukesha, look at what they've done. Campus flagpole is actually a cell phone tower. And when you look at it, you have no idea that's the case. It's very cleverly done.
Actually, the Littleton Fire Department's the exact same way.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
And that flagpole is at about the highest point on the campus, and it's as far away from the FAA, the runway airspace. Anyway, look into that.
All right, I will, thank you.
I made a mistake. I need a roll call vote for the approval of the bills rather than the A or nay. So we'll go forward with that. Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Hirschman?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries. Chief Hay, do you want to talk about the fire department bill?
Yes, we've also got, instead of 5, we've got 4 sets of bills in front of you that were all signed by Commissioner Mueller. A couple of things to bring to your attention. One is on page 5C for Belco. It's actually mislabeled as to what it was for. That's actually for installation of the Opticom system as well as a mobile data computer set up within that computer. So that's what that is. That's our brand new Endless 96. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention was on page 5K, and that was for 5 Alarm, and that was for the purchase of 3 new SCBAs as well as 30 new masks. One of the things that we're finding is that the SCBAs we're currently using are no longer being produced. The new style is out. We're going with this newer style, which means we also have to get a new mask for it. So we'll be transitioning over to that new one that we'll go through.
SCBA means?
Self-contained breathing apparatus.
That's what, thank you.
So I'll be glad to answer any questions you have, otherwise ask for your approval.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions? Wait a minute, I gotta do the roll call again. Myers?
Yes.
Hirschman? Yes. And I'm gonna settle this once and for all. I said Miller, he said Mueller. Which is it?
You're right. Miller.
Thank you.
My apologies.
Well, no, I hear the voice, and let's, I want to do it right, and Miller's fine. Okay, you approve?
Yeah.
And so do I. So that carries. Police Department activities, training reports, and correspondence packet.
Yes, fairly busy month we had in January. A couple of things to bring to your attention. We had sent a couple of our officers to a lethality assessment training program with PDC, partnering with PDC, and I'll let Lieutenant Zepps talk a little bit more about that. But we're in the process of training all, or we have trained all department sworn personnel in this lethality assessment questionnaire that we go through with domestics. And Pat, if you want to.
Yeah. Lethality Assessment Program is actually a program that originated in Maryland with their network against domestic violence. It was a program that was owned by the Personal Development Center, and on our end, if we go to any type of intimate partner domestic violence situation, there's a specific series of questions that we can ask that will actually trigger a call to PDC at that moment based on those questions. What those questions are actually doing is they're assessing the potential lethality of the victim's situation. The nice part about this program is that if that call is made to PDC, they can offer services right at that time instead of the old way we would just simply offer them a victim information card and then hope that they used it, and more times than not they probably didn't. So an excellent program. We've actually had 2 of them through already, and we've had really good positive results. So, and that one will affect February 1st.
One thing that PDC is doing, like Pat mentioned, is having a 24-hour person available, applicant available for us. There's times where in dire situations we reached out to PDC advocates to help in situations because we felt or we feared that an individual was going to go back to this dangerous or violent lifestyle because that's all they really knew. Where now we can get them some of these services and assistance and support right off the bat and empower them to start maybe making some different choices in their life to include some immediate counseling and maybe other plans away from their domestic partner. So I'm looking forward to it making the community safer, helping individuals within the community that maybe weren't empowered or strong enough to make those choices on their own. And I think it's a great program. A couple other things to bring to your attention. On the 24th of January, we met with Employer Solutions, with the working with us with our job function testing, our annual job function physical fitness testing that we're going to be doing department-wide. We actually have 2 dates set up to do our preliminary physical fitness tests, which are job-related. In the past, we would follow, or we would look at potentially following what our new hire testing is, which is a 1.5-mile run, a 300-meter run, sit-ups and push-ups. Those don't really pertain to the job. So now we have a quarter-mile obstacle course that we have that we use the Marshfield Fieldhouse High School Fieldhouse for. With that obstacle course, there's certain obstacles that they have to maneuver around. One is a 4-foot wall, one is a 1-foot hurdle to simulate a curve. One is carrying a 15 or 20-pound sandbag or running with it about 30 feet to simulate certain equipment that they'd be carrying in the line of duty. And then there's also some push-pull and stair climbing, both ascending and descending, just to simulate the 7-story buildings we have in the community to being able to just show that we're able to perform those functions. So that'll be taking place on both the 11th and the 18th. And it's our goal to get every sworn member in the department through that. And we're just kind of formulating a baseline right now and see how that looks once that's performed. Lastly, well, two things. We had our auxiliary appreciation dinner. We call it the Midwinter Get-Together out at River Edge on the 27th. That was attended very well by many officers and employees from the department, as well as many auxiliary officers. I'm trying to recall the numbers, but to date, actually I had it on my phone, but to date, since the inception of the police auxiliary back in the 70s. I believe that, if my numbers are right, they've saved the city in overtime roughly just over $3 million in overtime costs over that 40-year span that they've assisted. And that's going off of today's current rates of pay. But the number of hours that they volunteer to help in adverse weather or park patrol or helping with the fair or extra security at football games and other large audience types of activities is we're very fortunate to have a committed group as we do in the auxiliary. And lastly, we had a strategic planning meeting at the end of January. We're getting close to the point where we're going to reach out to the community and get some community buy-in and feedback into our strategic planning. And we reworked our vision statement, our mission statement, looked at our values and combined some and tweaked others. But we're excited, the group is excited about the current works on the strategic plan for the police department, partnering in many ways with the working that the city's doing with their strategic planning. But yeah, I look forward to sometime in the near future bringing a rough draft and to this group and looking for feedback and approval and meeting with you all individually. That's all on that. Otherwise, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions, gentlemen? Okay, thank you, Chief. You're up again talking about policy.
Yep. There's a armored rescue vehicle policy that wasn't part of the Lexipol policy batch that we had handed out a couple months ago. I had actually thought that this had been approved by this group, but I realized that I hadn't forwarded it on to you. So what this does is it just articulates the training required to operate our armored rescue vehicle, the situations which operation of it would be approved, maintenance guidelines. A couple things were brought to my attention as it relates to verbiage in here relating to the fire department and their potential use or other city function use of it. It's very, I guess, loosely covered in here, but I'd be happy to add maybe some more content relating to, any trained city employees, are capable of operating this, because I want to make sure that it's a city vehicle, not just the police department vehicle.
I'll interject here. I don't suppose you can imagine who brought that up to him. What I think probably, as a little reflection, would make more sense is for the two chiefs to get together and work out some kind of an understanding about how, doesn't have to be in this policy, but I think there should be something between the departments about how the fire department gets access, under what conditions they can use, training, all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
Because there might be a time when you would need that kind of vehicle because you couldn't get where you wanted to go with the regular ambulance, regular piece of equipment. And there should be some, I think, detailed understanding of how that relationship works. But you two guys, can work that out.
Sounds good.
Anything else about the policy?
No. Otherwise, I would look for your approval of that policy.
Motion to approve the policy. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Questions for the chief? Comment? This
Seems to cover all bases. I mean, a lot you can improve on it. And there's some responsibility dealt out here and there. It makes sense to have just somebody who's familiar with the vehicle being able to operate it.
How many of the officers will be trained to operate the vehicle?
One at a time.
Minimum of 2 in the vehicle.
Right.
Do you like your job or not?
Oh,
Very much so.
Yeah.
There will be 2 trained operators in that vehicle at all times. Currently, we have we opened it up department-wide to those sworn individuals who had an interest in learning how to drive the vehicle. And I don't know the exact number, but I'd say roughly 2/3 to 3/4 of the department is trained in operation, and I know that there's trained people on every shift, so there's never a time when we wouldn't have a trained individual on duty being able to operate the vehicle.
Can I just ask one question?
The only time it's going to roll is either on your authority or your designee, right? So a designee, would that be somebody that was in charge of the shift? Would it be one of the lieutenants, a sergeant?
Yeah, it would be somebody, it would be a commanding officer that
Okay.
would make that decision.
Okay.
If we were going to be sending it out of jurisdiction, it would probably, that decision would go through me or that immediate designee in my absence. If it was a situation such as a snowstorm that was mentioned and roads being impassable and we needed some sort of vehicle to be able to get somebody to, get medical need to that individual, that I think the shift commander could make that decision without having to call me on.
Right.
There's times when, it was also listed in that policy that we can bring it out for community functions as well. So, I mean, it's not just brought out in emergencies, but it could also be brought out as, for Maple Fall Fest or the fair or some other, the mayor's breakfast, things like that, if we wanted to have it on display so that the community was aware of it. I know we had it down at that Kiwanis Enormous Equipment Playground, and it was quite popular, and it was a good public relations opportunity to educate the community on why we have it, why we need it, situations we would use it in an emergency. So it was a good event, and it was. I think if anybody was wondering previously why the city of Marshfield needed such a vehicle, their questions were answered at that type of event.
Anything else? Did we do roll call on this yet? I don't think so. Any other comments or questions? We have a motion to do something. This is way too early in the morning for me. I'm just sorry.
Some more coffee.
Roll call vote. Myers. Gershman.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes.
Keel, yes. Motion carries. Crime reports, Chief.
Yep.
The only thing I noticed, I'll make a comment right up front, is that the dark blue lines pretty much seem longer.
Yeah, in many cases, the dark blue lines on these forms would be the 2016 numbers for certain cases we responded to. There was an increase in thefts quite significantly over 2015. We had, crimes against, families or crimes against children cases were increased in 2016 as well. Some traffic stop numbers were increased over previous years. One discrepancy in the report, drugs had gone up, drug use and drug arrests have gone up, according to this report. One discrepancy that we're still working on with the company on this report is to get accurate OWI, driving while under the influence numbers. The way that the software currently counts those is if you arrest somebody for possession of heroin and drunk driving, it's only going to give, the program only gives credit to the higher or the more severe offense, which would have been the possession of heroin. So the drunk driving arrest doesn't get counted on here. I think if my numbers were right, we actually had close to 125 drunk driving arrests, where here it said 80. So that means that those other 40 or 45 arrests that weren't on here had some attributing arrest or charges to it, whether that was a drug arrest or maybe a vehicle pursuit or some other type of, arrest or circumstance that would have been more significant than what the software considered the OWI. So, but that's the only discrepancy we were able to find throughout all of the report. But this shows, as the comments I've made in the past show, that our officers are busier now than they were 5 years ago, and I don't see that trend changing anytime soon.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Are there any questions? Yes.
For the comparison report, where the previous period or the previous year for 2015, is it still using just the primary as that basis as well?
report?
So the previous year, or the year report in the DWI case,
Yep.
would it shown, is it reporting it the same way, would it show just the heroin charge, not the DWI charge?
Yeah, yes, so those numbers, yeah, both numbers would be off, so, but it was most significant, I think, when I looked last year, and I noticed this for the first time last year when I did the annual report, they weren't as off. I mean, there was probably a 15 to 20 count discrepancy, where now there's like a 40 to 45 count discrepancy roughly. So, but yeah, they would have been off a little bit as well, yeah, that 2015 number.
It's become more significant.
Correct.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we will go forward, and that's Chief Haight and Fire Department activities and so on.
One of the things I wanted to bring to your attention is on page 9J. We've started our critical care paramedic class. That's the reason we will be meeting here for the last month and going on forward. So that should be done by April. So we'll move forward from there. A couple other things I wanted to bring to your attention. We have a couple of donations that we received from both the PEO Sisterhood and Mary Jo Keno, which are greatly appreciated. It's just nice they come in. Very seldom do they have what they really want to donate to, just make a donation to the department, and those are greatly appreciated. Also on page 9P, we got a phone call from a gentleman in reference to an ambulance call that we had for his mother, and on that, Pete Fletty, Lance Christopher, and Matt Karnowski from our department all participated in that call. It was a serious event for this gentleman's mother, but the thing that really brought, besides the great care that he noted that he'd received from these gentlemen, it was after a snowstorm, and he was in the process of trying to get the sidewalk to the house cleared out so they could bring his mother out with no problem. And one of the three gentlemen also grabbed a shovel and helped him get that up and running, and he thought that was above and beyond and very much what was helpful. So to him, it was a really great experience, and so he just wanted to compliment us on quality of care, our help, and just generally the image that we portray to the public. So be glad to answer any questions you have. Otherwise, it's
Questions, comments? I don't hear any, Chief, so thank you for your report. Next item on the agenda is discuss possible changes to fire lieutenant position description, increasing requirements. And Chief, you're on again.
Yes.
And my understanding is we'll be informed this morning, and then we're not taking action today.
Correct.
Yes, right?
And this is still subject to change. But one of the things that we're looking for is to continue training within the department and bring people up. And so we're starting with lieutenant's position to add, additional training that we want to see. Any changes that we make to this policy will not affect the gentlemen that are currently in this position. They'll be encouraged to get up to that level. And the odds are that we won't have, when one of those positions open up, we won't have somebody that's fully trained up to that. But we would kind of look at having that become one of the requirements, that they attain that training as well as we go on. With that in mind, we are also trying to do our best to make sure that the training that would be required for this, as well as other things, is available to these people. Not all of it can be done, in a timely manner, and so we need to move forward with that, but we're currently trying to do that. Two of the things that are happening above and beyond this are the fact that we have state mandates that are coming through for all personnel, and we're working toward getting that training out to them as well. So this is just the first start of that. You're going to see probably a series of these come through as we get things done in the future. And so I'll pass that on to the next regime, but it's something that's very much. I don't know if you have any questions about what you have in front of you. It's pretty straightforward. And I'll be glad to answer any questions. Otherwise, you can expect to see this back.
Gentlemen, questions or comments? Not hearing any. So thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
We look forward to discussing and deciding and so on in the future then. I'm not sure who will speak to proposed changes to internal handling of ambulance billing.
I'll start it out, and Jen can jump in if she feels the need. I just want to bring to your attention something that's happening. We've had a committee established with the city's finance director, assistant finance director, Jennifer Raku from HR, and Scott Owen and myself in reference to how we are handling ambulance billing in-house. We received another retirement from the ambulance billing account for Joanne Outman, who will be retiring after, I believe, around 30 years of service to the city. And that's a knowledge trust that's kind of tough to do that. And with that in mind, we were taking a look at, what is it going to take to do that? One of the things that's happening with ambulance billing is, and it's happening with medical insurance across the board, is they have switched how they do that. There's a set of codes called the ICD codes, and they went from the ICD-9 codes, which was 14,000 codes, to the ICD-10 codes, which is 69,000 codes. So the training required just to know how to bill and things like that is getting a lot more. The other thing that's coming down the pike that we're finding is the fact that Medicare, in hopes of getting more money back, and that is auditing places, which I think is a really good idea. The only problem with that is their method for auditing is they've hired the auditors, and their reimbursement is based off of how much they get returned back to to Medicare. So it's kind of a catch-22 type of thing. So what we're looking at is, while we feel very comfortable with what we've been doing now, that may not happen in the future. And simply because it is just too broad and abstract, and keeping track of what's required is a very difficult thing, as well as getting training for this. There's a lot of training out there for the medical billing across the board, but ambulance billing is a very specialized subset of this. And that training is very few and far between, and it's also very expensive. And so to even get the correct training for that is going to require, sending people out of town, either to Las Vegas or somewhere, was it Louisville?
Well, what a choice.
Yeah, St. Louis, yeah. But it's going to be, between that, it's tough just to keep people up in arms. So we actually looked at what was available, had some presentations, and talked about it. And what's going to happen is, ultimately what we're looking for finance, budget, and personnel to do is to give us approval to put a request for proposals. At that point, we'll know whether it's financially beneficial to us. Right now, based off of what we've learned, we believe that it's going to be very, very close, and it may be worthwhile doing that. But until finance, budget, and personnel, what happened when it was presented to them on Tuesday of this week is they didn't feel they had enough information, so they tasked the group to come up with a select amount of information that they want, and we're in the process of accomplishing that for them. But I wanted you to be aware of what's happening and answer any questions you may have on that. Anything to add?
Any questions for the chief?
I guess whose responsibility is that? Is it, when it falls under the city for the most part, but they're doing the work for the department? Is that the structure wise? I mean, it's city employee. And
Sure. So today the employees fall under the finance department that run the ambulance billing. So ultimately the team had looked at three options. Either we keep the program as is. We either look to transition the ambulance billing department to the fire department, or we do an RFP for a contracted service. So that's really needs to be decided yet.
So those lines have always, it has worked well, but it's never been fully defined as to how that works. But we've had a great relationship with that department. We work well together as a team, and so it's been a team effort. But when you start to determine the lines, that gets a little bit blurred.
so when you do define those lines, are we reimbursing there's the city function to collect the bills. Okay, all right. Then I won't ask any more questions.
Just a comment, if the responsibility were shifted to the fire department, I think that would have to go through here. We'd have to decide whether that's an appropriate choice. Just so we're all on the same page there. Any other comments or questions for the chief about ambulance billing? I know it's I have some familiarity with what's going on at the clinic in terms of coding and billing, and it is getting exceedingly complicated, just terribly complicated. And if the ambulance billing is in the same realm, it's got to drive you nuts. All right, is there anything that we have not covered or need to cover before we go into closed session? Hearing nothing, I'll ask for a motion to go to closed session. Thank you. We have a motion.
Second.
Second. That's a roll call. Myers?
Yes.
Gershman?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Keo, yes. We have now gone into closed session, gentlemen.